segment 2 of part 5 of Hawk TV. Thank you again, everybody, for all the nice notes and emails and such like that. If you have somebody you'd like to see in that chair, email me, hockeykfn.com. If you got a hat you want me to wear, send it here to the station. I'll wear that as well. You know I love baseball caps. And if you're a television station, Channel 4, and you're looking for a show, we are more than happy to be on broadcast television as well. But again, speaking of broadcast television, we have the great Mark Rosen in here for episode 5, and his book, Best Seat in the House, comes out when?
Comes out Thursday, March 29th. I'll be appearing at Barnes & Noble downtown for my first signing appearance, and then subsequently I'll be at a lot of Barnes & Nobles. And I'm going to make appearances pretty much anywhere in the state. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, hardest working man in the state for a month or two,
well,
right?
you know, I'm hopefully a lot longer. I mean, I enjoy that part of it. I'm looking forward to that because it's right in my wheelhouse, loving to talk to people. And so I'm looking forward to that. You're
gonna be amazed, and I think you're gonna be emotional by the response. I really believe that.
I'm already getting a sense of that because I realize I'm the conduit to a lot of their similar memories, and that's the thing. And that's what this is all about. Is that, you know, this isn't about it's me because of my career, but hopefully giving them a look behind the curtain a little bit of some of the same personalities and events that they've had a chance to witness as growing up here in the Twin Cities, or their fathers or whomever. Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to talk about your dad a little bit more too, because I want to now go into, we've talked about your early part of your career and you being a writer. I know you had indiscriminate moments where you were actually in front of the camera on screen, but when did you get your first real shot to be a reporter?
That's a great question. Well, reporter and then anchor. The reporter came first.
Yeah, of course.
I started doing some reports early on in the early 70s.
Still in high school, or
no? I was in college at the time. But I went hardship. I mean, I stopped my college career. I'm not proud of it, but it just was at the point where they hired me full time. I was doing what I was doing.
Of course.
I was actually a teaching assistant at the U, and believe it or not, like for the radio department over there. Isn't that ironic? I was a TA over there for a while, and in broadcasting. It's because the professor felt like, you know, hey, I'm getting this practical experience, and I'll help tell you what I can tell you. But I started reporting early 70s. In fact, one of my first big assignments, again, why do they assign us to me? I don't know. I got to cover the 1973 NFC Championship game. They sent me to Dallas. The Vikings, Chuck Foreman's rookie year, arguably maybe the best game the Vikings have ever played as a franchise. They beat the favored Dallas Cowboys. Fran Tarkenton is a quarterback. Chuck Foreman's the running back. John Gilliam, Jim Marshall, and Foreman was a rookie, and I was a rookie, basically, in my business. And we developed a bond after that, and the Vikings won that game. I swear to God, I was a big Kennedy assassination nut.
Sure.
And I'll never forget when just think about this. This is 10 years after Kennedy was assassinated. 10 years, that's nothing. So I remember getting to Dallas and saying, I got into a cab, and I said, take me down to Dealey Plaza. And the cab did. And for whatever reason, this particular time, I didn't even get out of the cab because I thought, I just wanted to see the building. I said, well, were you here that day? He goes, yeah, I was here that day. If I'd known the president was going to get shot, I sure would have been down here. I went, whoa, boy. I was like, okay.
That's an odd answer.
That was his answer, and I'll never forget it. I went, okay, take me back to the hotel, please.
Yeah, for sure.
But I was there covering the Vikings game.
Incredible. So were you just nervous as all get out to go on air for the first time?
As a anchor, yes. I auditioned for my first news director, Ron Handbrake. I did an audition, and we didn't have teleprompter back then, so it's a script in front of you, read, and he said to me, and Ron's a great friend of mine, he goes, well, it was okay, but don't really ever expect to be on the air here that much. I said, okay, that's cool. You're right, but I'm going to show you. I'm going to prove it to you. And Ron was in the general manager when I had my first big break when they hired Jim Dutcher, who was the basketball coach at the University of Minnesota. And they hired him to do a basketball show. And they really weren't quite sure who was going to do it. I said, I'll do it. And surprise, surprise, they said, okay, we'll give the kid a shot. Well, that was my first big shot of hosting a show or doing something. And I was nervous. I wasn't sure how well I was going to do, but I could not have asked for a better person than Jim Dutcher to kind of guide me through my error of my ways and sort of make sure the show smoothly. But I had a blast doing it.
Your dad, obviously, you said, took you to a lot of sports.
Yeah.
Was he a giant sports fan, or was he doing it because you were a giant sports fan?
My dad was a giant sports fan. I mean, he was a World War II vet. I mean, here's a man, again, they didn't talk about their war experiences all that much. My dad landed at Utah Beach in October after D-Day, and fortunately he survived everything. He and his brothers, much like Saving Private Ryan, he was over there with 4 of his brothers.
No kidding.
And so he came back and then started his life and his family, and but grew up in Minneapolis, so worked for Paramount Pictures for 40 years as a salesman, and long before I existed, took my mom to Minneapolis Laker games when they were here with George Mikan, and so he went to Minneapolis Millers, the minor leagues. We didn't have Major League Baseball then. So when I became growing up, he started taking me to Twins games when they got here in '61. So he was. And Gopher games. So he was a huge sports fan his whole life.
When I first started doing radio here at the Fan, and I was doing the motorsports show,
yeah.
My dad, obviously a major NASCAR guy. We've
Sure.
been going to race since literally I went to my first race when I was 6 months old. I'll never forget introducing him to people like Richard Petty in person, having the opportunity to do that.
Right.
Did you ever have that moment with your dad?
I sure did. I think a couple of things with my dad. One of them was Bud Grant. So my dad watched him play as a Minneapolis Laker.
Really?
Sure. I didn't see Bud play. I saw Elgin Baylor play his last game here as a Minneapolis Laker. But my dad knew Bud's career backward and forward. So the first time I was able to introduce my dad to Bud Grant was a big deal, because my dad was a season ticket holder of the Vikings when they first came here, and obviously was here when Bud started his career in '67. And so that was a big deal to me. That was probably, for my dad, the top of the charts. For my mom, the biggest one, which I talk about in the book, is the Lakers had a reunion, and to be able to introduce my mom to the one and only George Mikan was unbelievable. It was one of the greatest days of my life, and I have a picture in the book of her beaming, and George is in a wheelchair at the time, and my mom told me this the other day. He goes, "Come over, sit by me, honey, sit by me," and my mom has a smile on her face that because we hear about our sports heroes. Mikan was gold. I mean, he was that kind of a gentle soul, gentle giant.
Right.
And for my mom to come full circle with that, to have me introduce, and then have Mr. Mikan, that's what I refer to him as, introducing, say, Mark, I really like your work. Okay, who just told me that?
Yeah.
George freaking Mikan.
Right.
I mean, the greatest Laker of all time. I mean, come on.
That's pretty incredible.
That was cool. So those two instances with my parents were great.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I know how great it's been for my dad to be able to watch me get to meet the people and stuff like that. It must have been wonderful to watch for your parents to watch you grow and become Mark Rosen from somebody who just worked their butt off.
I think my sisters got a little tired of it.
Sure. How many sisters do you have?
I have 2 sisters. One, an older sister lives in Denver. My younger sister lives in town here.
Okay.
But they got caught in the crosshairs of my dad in particular. Well, I mean, my dad, of course. I mean, I'm his only son, and I'm a sports guy, and I'm Mark Rosen's father. And I brought that kind of joy to my dad. I mean,
wonderful.
Please. And I know they got caught up in that stuff a little bit, but I didn't go overboard about that whole thing, of course. But with my dad, until he passed away in '94, it was great to share all those things with him.
I bet. You talk about your big break. What was your breakthrough moment? Is there one you can point to?
Well, I think the time, a combination. I think what elevated my career twofold. I think from a television standpoint, covering the 1980 Olympics in Lake Placid, which is the zenith of my career in terms of participating as a reporter in any event. Obviously, nothing could ever top the Miracle on Ice. That elevated my status. I came back and did a show like that. And then when I first started my Sunday night show with Ahmad Rashad, getting permission from my boss to do a 15-minute Sunday night show, the Rashad Rosen Report, gave me my own forum for the first time. And that show is still on the air as we speak today. It became Rosen Sports Sunday.
Yeah, right.
But that was that moment. Honestly, I think and we're sitting here on talking about radio, my career was okay, and then I sort of hit a dead spot, I think, for a while. And then
circa when?
83, 84, 85.
Why?
I don't know. I didn't look at it that way, but I think my research and maybe everything just sort of flattened out. I don't recall anything specific, but from my bosses at the time, they were sort of saying, you're doing okay, but we'd like you to do better. We'd like to see more of Mark Rosen. We want you to be show more of that of yourself. And so I got a lot of that, and it was advice I took very seriously. We were doing the state high school hockey tournament at the time, but I was like, geez, I'm a little worried here. And honestly, I think what catapulted me after that was starting my radio career in KQRS with Bernard. I mean, because all of a sudden I started doing radio. I was doing little bits and pieces for W Light, but then Bernard, I started a month before Tom, but the whole radio thing in 1986, all of a sudden, everything exploded, and my personality came out, and it went back and forth, and that's what created.
Yeah, because you can absolutely show people who you really are.
No question
you got time to talk.
Not in a 3-minute sports segment. It became,
absolutely.
It was supposed to be 3 minutes, a radio segment with Bernard. It turned into a 15-minute free-for-all.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, I'm running for governor. But yeah, that absolutely was that next moment.
For
so
sure.
I think the dead spot I had, and then everything sort of took off.
I want to talk more about that. I want to talk about you with Tom Bernard and the growth of one of the greatest local morning shows in the history of radio. I mean, let's just be honest here. I know we're on KFAN.com, but what Tom Bernard and what KQ has been able to do in local radio is amazing, and you had a lot to do with that. And I don't think people know that a lot. Hopefully they know about it after reading it in this book. So we'll talk about that. And then at the end of this, I want to talk about your favorite and least favorite people that you've met in sports. We can talk about the Miracle on Ice as well, but I don't want to blow everything in the book. But I also want to get what you would say to kids who so often say these days, I want to be in television. So much more with Mark Rosen on Hawk TV, episode 5. We'll be right back on KFAN.com.
Yeah. When I'm at the dome, shorties all asking me to take them home. When I'm at the X, showing off my iPad so I can get.
Hey.
Yeah. At the U, I'm bad. Co-ed say I remind them of their dead. We headed to the bar, I got the power. Ladies love me more because I'm there with my work.
Marky's my guy.
Girl, look at that body. Girl, look at that body. Girl, look at that body.
I work out.
That is crap.
Girl, look at that body.